Hmm. Lowelmina opened her eyes as the sun beat down on her face. Good morning, Princess Lowelmina greeted Fish. Ever since their arrival, Natra. She'd been one in charge of walking Lowelmina each morning in the palace bedroom allotted to her. After the feud with the tribes had been settled, Lowelmina had returned to the palace with Wayne. Good morning, Fish. Yawn. Did you sleep well? Yes, I had a nostalgic dream. From your countenance, I'm guessing it was a lovely one. Well, it's a very important memory of mine, although she was probably the only one who felt that way. After all, when they snuck into that aristocrat's mansion, one unexpected event happened after another, and the situation had escalated into a chaotic uproar. There was no doubt that all memory of their chat had been wiped clean from Wayne's mind. Fish, I don't have anything in particular scheduled today, right? Lowelmina confirmed as she stretched lightly. Since coming to Natra, every day had been packed with dinners and visiting various locations, including a battlefield, but she'd recalled there was nothing in particular on this day. But the reply was different from her memories. The Crown Prince would like to invite you to tea. Prince Wayne, huh? The moment the name registered in her brain, her sleepy mind sprang to life. What shall I do? Fish asked. Please inform him that I look forward to it. Understood. This was Wayne they were talking about. There was no way he was inviting her to make small talk. Would he doggedly probe her, or did he have other intentions entirely? I accept his challenge, whatever it may be. Lowelmina donned a fearless smile and rose from bed. A clear blue sky spread over the kingdom of Natra, and warm sunlight filled the air, which was unusual for this time of year. Under normal circumstances, it wouldn't be possible to leisurely sit in the breeze as it blew through open windows. But by pairing it with the warmth of the sun's rays and a cup of tea, it was almost pleasant. I've been impressed time and time again since arriving in this country, including by the flavor of your black tea. Following her arrival, Lowelmina was enjoying a cup of tea that had been poured in a white porcelain teacup. Its rich aroma, its color, a clear crimson without a hint of murkiness. Amazing. I imagine it be in high demand at the Empire. Why haven't you exported it yet? Well, the tea leaves only grow in the mountain ranges, Wayne replied directly across from her. We've been tinkering around with a few things, but mass production is completely out of reach in the near future, which means most of it is consumed domestically. That's a shame. You want to bring some home with you? I would love that. Lowelmina smiled and sipped her tea. If there had been an artist or an inspiring one, they would have taken up to paper or canvas the capture of the perfect beauty of the scene. But there was no one in the room besides Lowelmina and Wayne, and neither were the artistic type, unfortunately. Guess you'll be going home soon, Loa. Yes, I've had a lovely time. It had been almost 2 weeks since the delegation arrived. As Wayne had just vocalized, the day she was to return to the Empire was fast approaching. My only regret is that I couldn't get you to declare that you'll be supporting my cause of usurping the Empire until today. Wayne guffawed, before cutting himself off. You've got some nerve. I know that's not what you've been scheming all along. This caused a rift between them. A troubled look flashed across Lowelmina's face in that split second. You say the strangest things. She was obviously shaken, like if she'd been falsely suspected of wrongdoing. Why would I come otherwise? To rekindle an old friendship? To see the sights? To investigate the gold mine that your kingdom seized? Nah. There's only one reason why you'd put yourself at risk to come here, Loa. His gaze pierced through her. It's all in order to save the Empire. Right, Lowelmina Earthworld? Agitation evaporated from her face. She giggled. I'd like to say bravo, Wayne, but that's just like you. But you know nothing at all. How could you possibly tie this trip to saving the Empire? Lowelmina asked mischievously. Wayne adopted a bitter expression, which means you won't come clean with me. Fine. He continued, Okay, I'll be frank. I'm guessing that the first hint of spring, the conquered nations in the former alliance are going to stage a revolt against the Empire, with the territories in tow, and you're here to prevent that. Well, well, well. Lowelmina took an elegant sip of her tea. Would you care to tell me how you came to this conclusion? It hit me when I saw the weapons of the Hanoi and Eschio. They were produced in the West. which meant they came into Natra through a transit point in the east. That means they're just a morsel of the stash of weapons that the Empire prepared in case of a civil war. You're saying our glorious Empire uses weapons of the West? What a distasteful topic. That said, it's not all that strange. I know Imperial equipment is of the highest caliber, but with 3 factions fighting over them, there's hardly enough to go around. As a last resort, isn't acquiring weapons from the West the logical next step? Yeah, but only if you hadn't divided them equally among yourselves. Wayne flung a stack of documents on the desk. I mobilized my troops to investigate, all hands on deck. We looked into the stocks of weapons in each territory and found that they'd all somehow been spread among the 3 factions of the Imperial Princes. Lowelmina gave the papers and gave a quiet groan to discover this in such a short amount of time. Your network of spies shouldn't be underestimated, Wayne went on. We looked into the future goals of those in the occupied territories. Connections, extortion, fame, advancement. From the outside, it appears they've aligned themselves with one of the princes for a variety of reasons. And this results in the current struggle for power. But follow the flow of weapons, you'll see that this situation was created with a clear purpose in mind. Speak of a rivalry between the factions, heighten concern for civil war, distribute equipment en masse to the occupied territories under the pretext of preparing for an internal conflict, use this opportunity to start a rebellion in these areas to destroy the Empire in one go. That's the scenario currently coming to a boil on the eastern side of the continent, Loa. How's that? Wayne laid things out with eloquence and true power. It was a voice that could overpower and shackle her, forcing her to nod along. But Lowelmina deflected it. You're coming up short. Let's assume your hypothesis is correct. Why am I here? If you're saying I knew about this all along, shouldn't I be warning my brothers? I bet you did. They just didn't listen. Or they listened and chose to do nothing. It'd be hard to completely cover up these traps for the rebellion. If it were me, I'd intentionally spread fake information and give my opponents a false sense of security. I'm assuming all 3 princes have been informed of the impending revolt, but are predicting it to be smaller than its actual size. Instead of squashing the rebellion before it starts, I bet each plan is being used as an opportunity to beat down the other 2 factions from the throne. Wayne snorted before continuing. Well, to be precise, those around them guided the princes into thinking this way. The vassals must be scheming that it'd be better to build connections with the West, especially with the Emperor laid low by illness and his successors found wanting. And this was where Loa's status made the greatest impact. Though the Empire was a meritocracy, men spearheaded politics, for the most part. There was no room for women, and Loa herself had no noticeable accomplishments in the political realm, which meant it didn't matter if she warned her brothers of oncoming revolt. Their disloyal retainers could easily put her in her place. And when you realized that you couldn't rely on your brothers, you made a big gamble, to pressure one of the forces to start the rebellion early, convince your brothers to recognize its danger, and provide hard proof of the uprising. And you chose to do that in Natra and the Garen state next to it, where Marquis Engadal has his stronghold. Lowelmina released a lamenting sigh and looked at Wayne. Incredible. You've come to the right conclusion. Is this where I say I'm honored to receive your praise? I offer you a kiss as a reward. I'll pass. Lowelmina shrugged her shoulders as if to say, how unfortunate. In the grand scheme of things, you're spot on. I felt that something was off about the factions, so I had Faish help me to investigate. I picked up on the scheme around summertime, but I was unable to persuade my brothers. I couldn't accomplish anything by myself either, which is why I thought I would use myself as bait to throw off their pace. With your nominal claim to the throne, Lowelmina nodded. I assume that the nations in the West want to march to the other side of the continent once the Empire has fallen to ruin. Those in the former alliance have different plans entirely. They hope to rise as independent nations and achieve distinction, but they view the West as a threat. Once they topple the Empire and achieve independence, they need to absorb the Empire's power to resist Western influence. If the rebellion succeeds, the princes will be killed, no doubt, Wayne added, and your older sister, the Imperial Princess who married an Imperial aristocrat, would be another likely target for execution. That would leave the youngest, unmarried Imperial Princess, You. By capturing you, the captor can take the Empire's legacy for themselves. In fact, they could even call their nation the Second Empire. That wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. And what do you think might happen if that person in question left the palace without a proper guard? They'd go out of their way to get a hold of you, even if it was difficult. This chick is bonkers, Wayne thought. He understood her reasoning. There was no other way to escape this quandary, meaning it was all she could do. That said, humans tended to fall into indecision when it came down to the wire, and he knew she was unusually courageous for walking this metaphorical tightrope. I mulled over who might fall hook, line, and sinker and decided on Marquis and Gadol. I knew he was part of the rebellion, but his family has a bad rep for betraying the Alliance in the past. I was sure he would want me as a pawn no matter what. It was here Wilhelmina smiled. This was around the time I heard you were searching for a princess. A real lifesaver. I was able to position myself within your neighbor's reach for the taking of Marquise and Gadol, which meant she'd come to Natra before winter set in to give his army the chance to seize her. It would be midwinter upon her capture, meaning the Imperial forces would have trouble operating at maximum capacity. His army would only need to hold back their advances until the revolt in spring. There was no doubt she could count on Marquis and Gadol making this assumption. She'd stayed in Natra long enough to buy time for the Marquis to build his army. Wilhelmina spoke of her plan casually, but it was a frightfully elaborate scheme. That's why Wayne had one point he didn't understand. What were you going to do if I handed you over to the Marquis? Odds are you wouldn't, and when I arrived I became absolutely certain this wouldn't be the case. Why? Because of Ninim. This was unexpected. Wayne was slightly caught off guard. She reminisced. Back in our school days, there was a time when Ninim dueled with the other students. And what about it? I thought it was because they looked down on her for being a flom. But she was usually calm and collected. Something was off about this situation. Then why did she fight? What if I said she wanted to solve this issue with her own hands to prevent you from taking these students down? Wayne couldn't answer, but his silence spoke volumes. You and Ninim share a special bond. I think it takes precedence to everything else. If you were to hand me over, the revolt would kick off and usher in a surge of Western influence. With Natra on the border between the two sides, you'd be unable to escape. That's why I knew you wouldn't do it. There's one place you'll never side with. The West, where they treat the Flam as slaves. That's why you were glad to see Ninim still by my side. Wayne brushed back his hair as he sighed. I thought it was odd, but now I get what you're trying to say. Of course, I meant what I said as a friend too. In any case, Wilhelmina went on. Those were my secrets. That's it. I'm sure that Marquis and Gadol will raise his forces to invade Natra and capture me shortly. You stopped for him for me, and I saved the Empire. If Wayne refused to hand her over, that meant a clash with Aunt Gadol. Forces was unavoidable, and since it was known throughout the land that Imperial envoys were here on business, he couldn't insist on claiming complete ignorance either. Have you lost faith in me? To think I'd call myself your friend and use you for the sake of the Empire? Anyone with a heightened sense of hearing might have detected the slight trembling in Wilhelmina's voice. Either way, Wayne only had one answer. Of course not. That's what makes you the Loa Belbis I've come to know, he grinned. But let me ask you this. Will Aunt Gadol's army really come to invade us? Wilhelmina knit her eyebrows. I see. You've made your own move. When she thought about it, he'd been easygoing as they reviewed their answers and hypotheses together. It was natural to think he'd already enacted a plan, but he shouldn't have had any time to spare. He'd probably come to this conclusion after quelling the tribal conflict. There hadn't been much time between them then and now for him to make any plans. And Wayne's move had actually been a simple one. What? It's no biggie. I just wrote Marquise and Gadol a letter. A letter? Yeah, a little something that says a certain high-ranking aristocrat will be heading toward her mansion after completing their stay in our kingdom of Natra. Wilhelmina adopted a look of surprise and concern. What's that supposed to do? That's nothing. Which is the best approach. It's crude and sloppy, and that's why he'll bite. You won't be able to help it. The idea is to make him think he's got no reason to fight, since you're falling right into his lap. He might invade Natra if you're here, but that won't be the case, especially since Marquis Ankadul is the type of guy who likes taking the path of least resistance. You've got it right that I don't want to be bossed around by the West, but I don't plan on going to war with Ankadul over it, either. Sorry, but I suggest you think of another way to stop the rebellion. Lilmina was seriously racking her brain. If she couldn't make Ankadul rise up in revolt at the right time, her plan would collapse. That said, it wouldn't do her any good to send him another letter claiming that the first message was all a mistake. After all, it was known that she was here on official business. Plus, with their return to the Empire fast approaching, any letter that was sent now wouldn't reach its destination before her departure. Even the original trip to Natra had been a near impossible request. If she expressed her wishes to extend her stay, she knew the majority of her envoys would be against it, and that would be tricky to override. I see. I didn't anticipate my plans being thwarted. What a surprise. Well, if you've actually stopped me, that is. Lilmina knew that those odds were slim. She hadn't realized that she'd investigated the son, the current Marquis Ankadul, while also researching his predecessor. Even if she had, she still would have thought the same thing. She had confidence that her plan would be fulfilled. I wouldn't be surprised if Nim burst through that door in a panic to tell you of an enemy invasion. But when it came to confidence, Wayne didn't fall far behind. Nah, won't happen, he proclaimed loudly. Let's make a bet. I say Ankadul's army won't make a move. Just when he'd finished, there was a dynamic bang and the door flew open. Your Highness, Nim kneeled before Wayne and Lilmina in a fluster. My apologies for interrupting your discussion. I have urgent news. Lilmina looked at the dumbfounded Wayne with a triumphant smile. What were you saying? Ah, right. Something about making a bet, right? No. Wait, hold up, just a sec. This has got to be some sort of mix-up. You never know when to give up, Wayne. I'll be generous enough to collect your debt at a later date. Matters of higher priority take precedence. Lilmina turned to Ninim. Well then, Ninim, tell me about Ankadul's army. Where are they? I'm not completely uninvolved. I believe I have the right to hear. Ninim blinked back. We have no reports of military activity. What? Ninim took a breath. The son of Marquis Ankadul, Lord Geralt Ankadul, has just arrived at the palace. What? Wayne and Lilmina let out an astonished shout.